You are stronger than you think. You don't need to explain your every move to be seen or share your struggles to be understood. In fact, the greatest power often lives in what you don't say. Today, we live in a world that pressures you to overshare, to post, to explain, to prove. But real confidence, real success, it grows in silence. It begins when you stop chasing validation and start becoming something greater, something grounded. That's the Stoic way. Your personal life isn't a performance. It's your inner citadel, the place where your self-respect, clarity, and strength are forged. The more you protect it, the more powerful you become. You don't need the world to applaud your process. You only need to show up, quietly, relentlessly, and with purpose. In this video, we'll explore how the discipline of privacy builds momentum, how strategic stillness rewires your mind for success, and why you attract what you become, not what you broadcast. We'll show you how to stop chasing and start building from within. So if you're ready to reclaim your peace, sharpen your focus, and grow on your own terms, you're in the right place. If this resonates with you, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share this with someone who needs this message today. Because true strength doesn't scream, it stands tall in silence. Let's begin. Privacy is power, not a weakness. They told you that speaking up was a strength. That vulnerability is bravery. The more you share, the more you heal. But what if they were wrong? What if, instead of making you free, oversharing has slowly been draining your energy, diluting your identity, and handing over your power to people who never earned the right to hold it? In a culture obsessed with exposure, where every detail of your personal life is up for likes, approval, and shallow applause, protecting your privacy becomes a radical act of self-respect. Stoic philosophy has always understood this. Marcus Aurelius didn't need to declare his inner struggles to the empire. He wrote them in private, not to be praised but to be better. Epictetus didn't perform strength. He built it quietly through discipline and detachment. And that's the truth most men miss. Strength that must be seen isn't strength. It's a performance. And performances fade. Your personal life is not content. It is not a strategy. It is your sacred ground, the space where your character is shaped, your values are tested, and your discipline is refined. The more you open that space to outside eyes, the more fragmented you become. You begin to live for reactions instead of results. You measure progress by applause, not by impact. That's the slow death of self-leadership. Think of it like fire. A flame in an open field gets blown out by the wind. But the same flame, protected inside a lantern, can burn all night, guiding you forward with steady clarity. Your privacy is that lantern. Without it, your ambition flickers every time someone questions your path. But when it's guarded, your vision grows stronger, sharper, more focused. You stop being reactive and start becoming deliberate. And yes, this applies in your relationships too. Not every friend needs to know what you're building. Not every family member deserves access to your pain. Not every colleague should be aware of your plans. Selective silence is not secrecy, it's sovereignty. A man who can protect his energy is a man who commands respect without ever raising his voice. He leads without permission. He builds without applause. You don't need to explain your silence, you just need to honor it. So before you post, speak, or reveal, pause. Ask yourself, is this my truth or just a habit of proving? Ask yourself, does this strengthen me or scatter me? The answers will be quiet, but they will be clear. Practice this. For the next 7 days, keep one personal goal, struggle, or insight completely to yourself. Don't post it, don't announce it, just work on it in stillness. Let it grow without noise. That's not hiding, that's becoming. That's how you stop chasing validation and start embodying success, the Stoic way. 2. Oversharing creates emotional debt. There's a strange exhaustion that follows the moment you share too much. You may not feel it right away, but it lingers, subtle, corrosive. Like handing someone a key to your house only to find your foundation weakened later without knowing exactly why. That's the hidden cost of oversharing, and too many men pay it daily, not with money, but with their peace, focus, and self-respect. We're told that openness is strength. That being transparent means being real. But when you share your personal battles with people who haven't earned your trust, you aren't being authentic. You're leaking energy. You're making your emotional boundaries porous. You're turning sacred weight into casual words. And once your inner world becomes a public forum, you no longer control it. You begin to shrink under the very light you thought would liberate you. The Stoics knew this well. Epictetus warned that what we say, once spoken, cannot be taken back. He taught that the wise man guards his speech like a soldier protects a gate, not from fear, but from strategy. Because silence, when chosen intentionally, is not repression. It's refinement. It is the discipline of choosing the right moment, the right person, the right motive. Without that clarity, speaking becomes a transaction, one where you pay far more than you realize. Imagine your emotional energy like a bank account. Every time you share an intimate detail, you're making a withdrawal. But not every audience makes a deposit in return. Some listen to compare, some listen to judge, others listen simply to pass it on. And when your worth is reflected in their reactions, you've lost more than privacy. You've compromised your direction. Real confidence doesn't spill across tables. It walks in, grounded, and speaks when silence no longer serves. That's the difference between presence and performance. A man who's always narrating his life rarely lives it. He's too busy proving it. But a man who guards his privacy has something the world can't touch: peace. The kind of peace that fuels action without applause. The kind that makes him unshakable in the storm. So start with this. Choose one conversation this week where you would normally overshare and don't. Pause. Redirect. Hold. Not out of fear, but out of power. You don't owe your past to strangers. You don't need to wrap your pain in stories to be worthy. What you withhold isn't weakness, it's wisdom. Because when you stop giving pieces of yourself to everyone, you start reclaiming the whole. And that is the first real step toward becoming grounded, strategic, and self-led. The kind of man who doesn't need to be heard to have impact. He moves quietly, but he moves with weight. 3. Silence is a form of self-respect. When was the last time you paused before speaking? Not because you were unsure, but because you knew the silence said more? In a world where noise is mistaken for clarity and constant expression is confused with connection, the man who can hold his tongue stands apart. Not because he has nothing to say, but because he understands that real power lies in what is withheld, not broadcast. They call it being closed off. They say you're distant. But they're wrong. Silence, when intentional, is not distance, it's direction. It's knowing that your thoughts, your struggles, your plans aren't public property. They are tools. And like any powerful tool, they require control. To speak everything you think is not a strength. It's emotional impulsivity dressed up as authenticity. Self-respect begins when you stop giving everyone a front-row seat to your inner world. The Stoics practiced this not as a trend, but as a principle. Marcus Aurelius journaled in solitude, not for applause, but for alignment. He wrote not to be understood by others, but to understand himself. He understood that the moment your thoughts belong to the crowd, they cease to belong to you. And a man who gives away his thoughts too freely will soon forget which ones were truly his. Think of silence like armor. Not the kind that hardens you, but the kind that shields your purpose. Without it, you become reactive, answering every challenge, defending every step, proving every thought. But with it, you move with intention. You stop needing to explain. You stop seeking approval. You start building momentum, protected by your own discipline. You stop chasing attention and start becoming immovable. Imagine a man walking through a storm with no umbrella, yelling over the wind, trying to be heard, exhausted and soaked. Now imagine a man who walks that same path wrapped in silence like a cloak. He doesn't need to shout. He doesn't need to explain. He keeps his direction. He gets to the end dry. That's what silence does. It preserves your energy, your clarity, and your calm. It allows you to make better decisions without the pressure of being watched. So next time you feel the urge to explain yourself, resist it. Next time someone demands an answer you're not ready to give, pause. You don't owe access to your thoughts, your grief, or your plans to anyone. Let silence be your boundary. Let it speak for you, because in that pause you reclaim your voice. In that stillness, you find your center. And in that practice, repeated daily, you become something most men have forgotten how to be. Grounded, present, powerful, Not because you shouted, but because you didn't have to. That is the quiet strength of a man who respects himself enough to keep what matters sacred. 4. Talking too soon triggers false satisfaction. Every time you talk about a goal before you've even started, your brain rewards you for nothing. You feel accomplished before you've moved an inch. That's not momentum, that's a mirage. And yet it's a trap many fall into. Announcing dreams, broadcasting intentions, publicly mapping out journeys that have yet to begin, all for a fleeting dose of attention that feels like progress but delivers none. There's a reason your drive fades after you talk too much about what you're going to do. It's chemical. When you speak about your plans, your mind releases dopamine, the same neurotransmitter released when you achieve something real. But here's the problem. You haven't actually done anything, and so the fire dims. Your urgency softens. You lose that silent pressure that pushes you forward in solitude. The reward came early, and now there's little left to fight for. Marcus Aurelius warned against chasing recognition before results. He lived in a palace, ruled an empire, yet filled his journal with reminders to stay humble, stay inward, and most of all, stay disciplined. His actions weren't announced. They were deliberate. And that's where real power lies, not in performance, but in execution. The Stoic mindset isn't about secrecy for secrecy's sake. It's about protecting your vision from premature exposure, shielding it from applause that hasn't been earned, from opinions that haven't been invited, from doubts that haven't been resolved. Think of a seed. Expose it too early to sunlight, water, and hands that aren't careful, and it dies. But buried in stillness, guarded from noise, it strengthens. It roots. It grows. Your goals are no different. Speak about them too soon, and you risk scattering energy you haven't yet harnessed. Keep them close, nurture them in silence, and you give them a chance to become something real, something unshakable. There's a reason the most impactful men often move in silence. They understand the danger of early celebration. They know that discipline means working without applause, improving without posting, becoming without announcing. Because if the reward comes from being seen rather than from doing the work, you've already lost your edge. You've traded fulfillment for feedback, mastery for momentary attention. So here's the practice. Choose one goal that matters deeply to you. Write it down. Keep it for yourself. No updates, no announcements. Just you and the work. Let the silence stretch. Let the results surprise people. Let your transformation speak louder than your words ever could. Because when you stop feeding the need to be seen, you start building something far more powerful. The kind of inner foundation that no applause can give and no criticism can shake. That's the core of stillness philosophy. That's how you stop chasing and start becoming. And that is what separates talkers from the men who lead. 5. Protecting your vision fuels real progress. Every great vision begins in silence. Not because it's meant to stay hidden, but because it needs space to breathe, to form, to mature, without the pressure of judgment or the weight of external noise. The moment you speak it too soon, it shifts. It starts adjusting to expectations that aren't yours. It bends to fit reactions instead of standing tall in its original shape. And that quiet sabotage, it happens slowly, disguised as feedback, concern, or encouragement. But it steals your edge before you've even begun. There's a subtle strength in men who protect their ambitions, not because they are afraid to share, but because they understand timing. They know a vision revealed too early becomes vulnerable, not just to doubt from others, but to internal doubt seeded by every raised eyebrow and sideways glance. Marcus Aurelius lived this truth. In the chaos of leading an empire, he didn't project his ideas outward. He wrote them privately, not for anyone else, for himself. Because he knew the real work of becoming isn't public, it's personal. Imagine a blueprint left out in the rain. Every drop, every hand that touches it distorts the design. What once was sharp becomes smudged. The foundation weakens before construction even begins. Your goals, your transformation, they need shelter. Not because they are fragile, but because they're forming. And premature exposure replaces momentum with maintenance. Instead of building, you begin explaining. Instead of acting, you begin defending. That's how progress erodes, through tiny compromises made for approval you never needed. In a world where people equate talking with movement, it's radical to build in silence. But that's exactly what the Stoic path calls for: strategic stillness. You act without asking. You grow without broadcasting. You fail, learn, adjust, all without performing. And from that discipline emerges something solid. Something that doesn't require explanation. Because true growth becomes self-evident. You don't need to be seen working on yourself to be working. You don't need applause to validate your path. Protecting your vision means honoring the process. It means having the courage to grow in solitude, where results aren't filtered through other people's opinions. It means choosing intention over exposure. It's not about hiding, it's about honoring the sacredness of becoming. So start with this. Choose one area of your life where you're evolving: your health, your mindset, your relationships, and keep it just for you. Don't tweet it, don't talk about it, just act. Track your progress in silence. Let each quiet win stack. Then watch what happens. The world notices what you become, not what you announce. And when you do speak, let it be from a place of strength, not to impress, but to inspire. That's the difference between someone chasing clarity and someone who's already found it. And that difference starts with protecting what's still in progress. 6. Not everyone deserves access to your inner world. It's tempting to believe that being open is the same as being strong, that telling your story to everyone who listens makes you authentic. But there's a quiet danger in confusing access with connection. Because when your inner world becomes public territory, you're no longer leading your life, you're performing it. Not everyone deserves access to your thoughts, your wounds, your dreams. In fact, most people haven't earned the right to witness your becoming. And giving too much too soon? That's not intimacy, that's exposure. There's a difference between being known and being understood. Many will listen, but few will care deeply. Some will ask just to compare, others to judge, and others still will use what you've shared as quiet ammunition, not because they're cruel, but because they don't carry the weight of what you've given them. They haven't lived your nights, they haven't fought your storms, so why hand them your rawest truth? The Stoics lived with this kind of boundary baked into their thinking. Epictetus taught that we must protect what enters and exits the mind, not to isolate ourselves, but to stay sovereign. A wise man, he said, keeps his counsel limited, because the fewer voices in your inner circle, the clearer your own voice becomes. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire, but confided only in himself and his journal. He knew that not all relationships are safe spaces. Some are shadows dressed as light. Imagine a house with no locked doors. Anyone can walk in, look around, and leave fingerprints. It doesn't feel like home anymore. It feels invaded. Your soul is no different. If you let every question unlock something personal, you dilute your own essence. And the more you dilute, the less you remember who you are beneath the noise. So instead of answering every question, try holding space. Instead of explaining, try pausing. Ask yourself, has this person earned this truth? Are they a vault or a megaphone? Do they make you feel grounded or exposed? If they haven't shown respect, depth, or loyalty, you owe them nothing. Silence isn't arrogance, it's discernment. Men who understand this principle build deeper bonds, not by saying more, but by protecting more. And in doing so, they become magnets for people who value authenticity over entertainment. When you guard your private world, you attract the rare few who are strong enough to respect it. Those are the people who deserve to walk beside you. Try this. The next time you're asked something deeply personal, respond with stillness. Don't react. Let the question sit. Then decide, not from fear, but from clarity. This is how you build real relationships. This is how you stay centered in a world addicted to oversharing. You don't need to close the door forever, but you get to decide who walks through it and when. That choice is where your power lives. 7. External noise weakens inner clarity. The world has never been louder. Everyone has an opinion, a judgment, a reaction. You share one personal thought, and suddenly 100 voices echo back, telling you what to feel, what to do, what to fix. But here's the truth. Every time you allow that noise in, your own voice fades, and a man who can't hear himself think will never know where he's going. We're trained to believe that outside feedback is essential, that we grow by collecting opinions, by gathering validation, by crowdsourcing clarity. But the more you rely on external noise, the more you disconnect from your internal compass. You stop leading. You start adjusting. Not based on truth, but on what sounds good to others. And soon, your actions become a performance stitched together by the expectations of people who don't walk in your shoes. The Stoics warned about this. Epictetus said, "It's not what happens to us that harms us, it's our interpretation." But what happens when you let others interpret your life for you? What happens when your next step is driven by applause or avoidance? You lose the power to choose for yourself. You trade intention for approval. And that exchange robs you of your momentum, your discipline, your stillness. Think of your mind like a lake. Still water reflects perfectly. But once you throw 100 stones into it, opinions, comments, likes, criticism, you see nothing. Only ripples, distortion, and distraction. That's what external noise does to your clarity. And without clarity, you start moving blindly. You chase what's trending, not what's true. You solve problems you don't have. You follow paths that aren't yours. And you wake up one day wondering how you drifted so far from who you were becoming. But there's a different way. You can train yourself to listen less to the world and more to your inner knowing. You can build a buffer, a space between stimulus and reaction, where you process in silence before moving forward. That's how grounded men make decisions. They hear everything, but they don't absorb everything. They filter. They prioritize. They protect what matters. So here's the practice. Before responding to any strong opinion, online or offline, wait 24 hours. No defending. No reacting. Just sit with it. Let your thoughts settle like sediment in a jar. Then ask, is this my belief, or did I inherit it from noise? This one habit rewires your mind for stillness. It makes your next action deliberate. It breaks the loop of reactivity and brings back the sovereignty that too many men have forgotten they own. Clarity isn't found in the crowd. It's forged in quiet. And the man who builds that space within himself becomes unshakable. Not because he silences others, but because he's mastered the rare art of hearing himself. That's not ego. That's leadership. And it starts by turning down the volume long enough to tune into what's real. 8. Let your actions speak, not your announcements. You don't have to tell the world who you are becoming, you just have to become it. In a time when talking has replaced doing, when people feel more accomplished after posting than after finishing, choosing silence has become a radical form of focus. And yet many still fall into the trap of early announcements, as if proclaiming a goal is the same as achieving it. But talking about change isn't change. Saying you're becoming disciplined doesn't make you disciplined. You don't attract success by broadcasting your intentions. You attract it by embodying your evolution. The Stoics mastered this mindset long before social media ever existed. Marcus Aurelius wrote in private, even as emperor, reminding himself daily, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one." That's not philosophy, that's execution. Stoicism doesn't reward those who talk. It empowers those who act. In that stillness lies your real value, not in the volume of your voice, but in the strength of your actions. Words fade, habits remain. There's a reason men who move in silence tend to go the furthest. When your focus shifts from how you're perceived to how you're building, you start creating from a different place, one rooted in stillness, grounded in substance. You no longer seek momentum through approval. You create it through consistent effort, one silent day at a time. While others are caught in the loop of explaining, you are busy evolving. While they chase attention, you chase mastery. And eventually, your results make noise louder than any announcement ever could. Imagine two craftsmen. One tells the town what he's building every day, pointing to the blueprint, updating every stranger who walks by. The other simply works. Sun up to sundown, no broadcast, no performance. Months later, the first man still talks. The second has a house, a place that didn't need validation to rise. That's the power of private work. That's what it means to let your actions do the talking. This isn't about staying silent forever. It's about not mistaking noise for progress, not mistaking exposure for momentum, and most importantly, not mistaking attention for achievement. The most magnetic men are the ones who don't chase recognition. They draw it by becoming undeniable, through proof, not promises. So here's the practice. Choose one behavior you want to embody. discipline, patience, strength. Don't announce it, don't share it, just live it. Wake up tomorrow and act as if it were already true. Track your days. Let the work speak. Let the transformation reveal itself in your posture, your presence, and your results. Because the truth is, when you stop explaining who you are, you give yourself the chance to become someone no one saw coming. And that's how you win, quietly, fully, and without needing to say a single word. Your personal life is not a stage. It's a sacred space, and guarding it is not weakness. It's wisdom. When you stop oversharing, when you learn to build in silence, you begin to feel something rare in this noisy world: peace. And peace is not the absence of struggle. It is the presence of control over your time, your energy, your direction. Throughout this video, we've explored why silence is more than just the absence of noise. It's a strategy. It protects your vision, strengthens your identity, and reconnects you with the discipline that success demands. The Stoics understood this long ago. They knew that power comes not from performance, but from presence. They didn't seek applause. They sought mastery. And that's the path we must choose, to live as though our actions are the only proof we ever need. You don't need to announce your progress. You need to embody it. You don't need to share your every step. You need to walk with quiet certainty. Stillness isn't passive. It's powerful. And when you train yourself to value internal validation over external noise, you start to attract the life you've been chasing. You stop needing permission to evolve. You just evolve. So I challenge you, begin today. Choose stillness, protect your process, practice strategic silence. Speak less, do more, and let your transformation be so grounded, so real, that it needs no explanation. If this message spoke to you, share your thoughts below. How have you reclaimed your privacy? What changes have you noticed when you stopped oversharing? Your story might be the spark someone else needs. Because in the end, you don't attract what you say, you attract what you become. And the man who remains silent is the one the world remembers.